Welcome to the Dark Nook Monster Shop. I make monsters here. This is a pool noodle. And this is my dangerously fast, ninja-like cutting skill. And here's 5 packets of foam clay, plus some garden wire. Toss in the eyes, a little Mod Podge, some paint. We're working with about $3 worth of material. I start by trimming the noodle into a shape that is not at all suggestively anatomical. Then, I rough out the face with a marker. Next, I cut out some foam on the bottom of the noodle to make sort of stubby little legs, and then I chop the scraps of pieces that I cut off into what I'll glue on later as feet. I try to use every part of the noodle. Now, I carve out the eye sockets. Don't go too deep or you'll hit the hollow core on the inside of the foam and then the eyeball will just fall through. So I test fit the eyes to make sure they're on there good. Here's a hot tip. Use the hot glue gun tip to sculpt into the foam. See what I did there? Hot tip. Moving on. Now I glue on the feet. Then I thread some garden wire through the pool noodle to make bendable arms. Just poke it through, twist it up, and you're in business. The eyes go in next. Once they're set where I want, I hot glue them in place. Then I carve a little more foam out to create the area for the nose and the upper lip. Then I hit that with a little more melty hot glue tip sculpting. Next, I brush some latex over the eyes, that way I don't have to clean paint off of them later. Now let's talk cost again. About $1.50 in clay, 10 cents worth of pool noodle, 40 cents for the eyes, $1 worth of Mod Podge. We're talking about $3 for a monster here. Time to crack open the first packet of foam clay. This one's really new and fresh, so it's still very soft. Perfect for filling in all the gaps around the eyes. I sculpt a basic brow, and then I skin over the top of the head. A little bit of water helps smooth it all out. Now it's time for packet 2. This one's a little firmer, so it's probably older maybe. But it's still perfectly usable. I flatten it out and cover the body, and make 1 foot. Before it dries, I shape out some toes and add a couple of toenails and then smooth it over with water. Now it's time for packet 3. First, I bulk up the brows and the head. Then, I shape out the nose and add the other foot. A little bit of Mod Podge and a stiff brush helps blend the clay and smooth it around the eyes and nose. Now it's time for packet 4. First, I use a little more Mod Podge to prep the surface. Then I slap on some foam clay cakes, because it's booty time. Then I blend that all in, finish the toes, and move on to sculpting the arms and hands. I shape out the arms, and then I press some little pre-made clay worm fingers into the hands. Anytime I have a little extra clay, I'll use it to make little fingers or some teeth or something like that. And then I'll put them aside in a box, and then when I'm working on a project later, if I need a couple of teeth or some fingers, I've already got them made. Next, I mix up some foam clay paste and use it as spackle for the monster. I use it to fill in all the seams and cracks and then smooth it with water. Once that sets, I move on to the second arm. Same idea, rough out the shape, carve in some grooves for the little fingers, poke in the little fingers, and then seal them in place with clay paste. Then I smooth over that with a little bit of water. I paint some foam clay paste over the bottoms of the feet, then I revisit the brow. One of the perks of foam clay is that you can always go back and add more. I layer on some extra clay and then smooth it again with Mod Podge. Now for the upper lip. I carve in a tiny trench for the teeth that I'm going to put in later. Now I know I said 3 teeth, but technically 2 of these little ones are just the roots cut off the other 2, so don't overthink it. It technically counts. Now on to packet 5. The final clay packet mostly goes into a chunky, underbitey bottom lip that the teeth will go in. So he's got a nice little pouty snarl thing going on. Then it's all smoothed with Mod Podge again. Honestly, the most expensive item here is probably the Mod Podge. A dollar store bottle of this is 1 ounce and costs, well, $1. Once the lips all dry, I move on to the ears. I jab some wire into the foam to create ear supports and then glue it in place with some Mod Podge. By the way, if you don't use the whole packet of clay, you can just fold it up, put it in a little Ziploc baggie, squish the air out of it, and seal it up, and it'll be fine. This is the second half of packet 5. I smush some clay onto the wire and then shape out the ears. Once that's done, I add some detail to the cheeks and brow. I want this guy to be a little fire imp, like a little mischievous ember with attitude. Not quite evil, more mischievous. I build up the brows a bit more to give him a little more of a scowly look, and then I add some more material to the corners of the mouth and the cheeks to give him sort of a mischievous smirk. I smooth the fresh bits with water and a stiff brush. Then I fine-tune the ears a little bit with some detail. Now I mix up one last batch of foam clay paste using the last of the yellow clay. This time I stipple it on to create a bit of a skin texture and to blend in the ears. I also reshape the foot and patch it with a little more paste. Now it's time for paint. I lay down an orange midtone, a couple brush coats and a heavy airbrush coat. Once that's dry, I hit all the low areas with deep red shadows and dust the top with very yellow highlights. Next, I spatter some red for that sort of splotchy, freckly skin look. Then I go in with a brown wash to dirty up the low spots and wrinkles. By the way, sorry I'm so late on this video, but the last couple of weeks I've been taking care of and basically adopting this little gal. This little sweetie fell off her mama's back when her mama got chased out of my yard by my dogs. And the problem with possum mamas is once a baby falls off, they don't really come back for them. Well, and her favorite thing in the world is just to sleep in the palm of my hand. So she's been doing that a lot, which makes it rather difficult to sculpt and paint and stuff, so I'll have to figure out a workaround. But for right now, this is the little cutie that's eating up most of my time. I paint the teeth bright white, and then I do a little bit of a whitewash over the toenails. Then once that's dry, more brown wash. And then after that, a little bit of a brown wash. And once that's dry, just a bit of brown wash. Finally, I dab on some UV resin around the mouth and a little on the toenails for that shiny, slimy look. And then I hit it with a completely normal and not at all excessive amount of UV light to cure. Once that's done, in about a half a second, then I peel the latex off the eyes and the oh-so-satisfying eyeball reveal. And there you go, one finished fire imp, fresh out of the Dark Nook monster shop. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you want more creepy creatures coming your way.